Level 1 Demon Lord and One Room Hero begins as we see a group of heroes fighting against the Demon Lord Diablo. The Demon Lord blasts them with his magic, and he commands them for reaching him. The priest Fred thinks it's all over for them, but the hero Max tells him not to give up. His companions are inspired and manage to get back up, but Diablo prepares to finish them off. Fred manages to block the attack, while Leah rushes in and blocks the Demon Lord's punch. Max jumps over him, while their maid Yuria enchants his attack and Max manages to deliver the finishing blow. As the dust clears, the Demon Lord commends Max for defeating him. But he swears his minions will live on for eternity, and that he will one day return to get his revenge. We cut to 10 years later, and we see Diablo has been reborn, excited to get his revenge on Max. He is welcomed by his servant Xenia, and he wonders where his other minions are at. But Xenia tells him they all went to sleep after his battle against the hero 10 years ago, so he calls them all useless. Xenia thinks he should put some clothes on, but when he goes to put on his old favorite clothes, he wonders why they don't fit. Xenia shows him how his appearance has changed, saying it seems his powers have not fully returned after only 10 years, so his body has also changed, including his gender. Xenia says she predicted that this might happen, so she reveals she has prepared some other clothes for him. He wonders why he is in a dress, but Xenia claims it's the traditional attire for mages. But Diablo says he doesn't remember Max's companions wearing something like this. Xenia also puts him in a maid outfit as well as a school uniform, but he eventually gets fed up with the outfits. He asks about how the hero is doing, but Xenia gets nervous hearing this. The Demon Lord thinks that since Max was the only person who was able to defeat him, he must have made a name for himself over the last 10 years, thinking he might even be treated like royalty. Xenia checks her records, and she mentions his current status is a mystery. As far as his appearance on the social and political stages, he seems to have disappeared. Diablo finds this strange, but thinks he must have gone into seclusion to train himself, thinking he remained humble after becoming a hero that saved the world, and he gets excited to see him again. But Xenia says he has a ton of work to catch up on, saying he should forget about the hero, but Diablo refuses, saying Max poses the biggest threat to him. Xenia says that although the hero has superhuman abilities, he is still a human at the end of the day, so he will eventually just get old and die of old age, so she thinks he should stop thinking about him. However, Diablo can tell she is hiding something from him. Xenia panics, realizing she has been caught, and Diablo thinks it's because Max is already dead. He wants to see for himself, so he uses his third eye to look for him. He can sense that Max is still alive, and he is somewhere around the human capital. Diablo decides to pay him a quick visit, but Xenia tells him it's a bad idea. She tries to stop him from going, but he doesn't listen to her, wanting to announce his return to strike fear into Max's heart. Diablo claims that this was the reason why he awakened early, and he flies off to find Max. He flies over to the human realm, and he notes that their civilization seems to have advanced over the last 10 years. He gets excited thinking about how Max will react to seeing him, and he arrives at his apartment. He shows off how he has finally been reborn, but we see Max, who is just confused, and he is half asleep. Max wonders who he is, and Diablo thinks he must be in the wrong place. But he suddenly notices Max's holy sword, recognizing it as the sword that defeated him. Max seems to realize who he is, and Diablo reprimands him for treating his sword like trash. Diablo can't believe he is really the same person that defeated him, and he thinks Max has gone completely out of shape. Max claims it's a natural part of getting older, but Diablo says he can't even recognize him from how he looked 10 years ago. He can't believe he is living in such a dump, thinking that it stinks, and he even starts helping him clean up. He is surprised to find a laptop, finding it interesting, but he suddenly remembers the reason for his visit. He claims to have returned stronger than ever, and he will rule over the humans once more. But Max has no reaction to this, and he even says that he doesn't care. Diablo is annoyed he woke up early for this, and he wonders what happened to him. Max reveals that after he defeated him and all the other demons, he was no longer needed by the world, and he ended up fading into obscurity, saying that in a peaceful world, heroes are completely useless, and he thinks living like a bum isn't so bad. Diablo looks him up on the laptop, and he finds a number of alarming results. He was apparently involved in a scandalous affair, but Max claims he didn't do it. Diablo sees a video of him being interviewed and thinks he is super guilty, but Max explains he didn't know the woman was married and he thinks he was framed by the husband. Diablo looks at the next article and finds he violently attacked a citizen. Max claims the headline is misleading and just trying to make him look bad, as he explains he was just defending himself when a bunch of guys jumped him. But Diablo thinks he could have just run away, remembering how Max got away from his undead army 10 years ago. Diablo starts enjoying himself, and he finds an article saying Max cheated on 10 different women. Diablo can't believe he became such a creep, but Max claims he never even met those women, and he says he is the victim. Diablo looks for his better moments, watching an interview he gave after he defeated the Demon Lord, where he says he was only able to win thanks to his friends, and he looks forward to his next mission. But Diablo laughs at him, finding it super cheesy, and he reasons that it was because of his insufferable attitude that made people want to expose him. Diablo notices a picture of his companions, and he wonders if they are still close. But Max says he hasn't seen them in years. Diablo thinks this is sad, but Max says that relationships don't last when there's nothing in it for the people, so he sees no reason to see them again. But Diablo thinks he is mistaken, saying it's because of his egotistical attitude that drove them away. Max says he doesn't know what he's talking about and tells him to leave. Diablo realizes why Xenia tried to stop him. Thinking that the hero he once knew is gone, he prepares to leave, saying he will prepare his army, but Max just encourages him to destroy the world. Diablo suggests he will go and take out his companions first, and Max tells him to start with Leo because he owes him a bunch of money. Diablo attacks him thinking he has become trash, but Max takes him out with a single hit, and Max claims there's no way his friends would lose to him. When Diablo wakes up, he finds himself in a closet and he wonders why Max didn't finish him off. As he comes out, he finds Max in a peculiar state, but he's actually just looking at girls online, and Diablo wishes he would have waited until after he was gone to do this. Diablo wonders why he didn't finish him off, but Max claims he is no longer a hero, so he has no business killing demon lords, even worrying it could end up in another embarrassing news headline. Diablo notes that he hasn't lost his touch, and he is still as strong as when they fought 10 years ago. Max tells him that he is the one who has gotten soft, laughing at his threat to take out his companions, but Diablo claims it's because he only just woke up. He says that one day he will regain his full powers and take over the human realm, hoping that when that day comes, they will do battle once again. But Max isn't able to make that promise with him. He is disgusted by the current world, and he has lost his ambition to be a hero. But he says that even without him, there will be a new hero who will rise to the occasion to stop him. Diablo comes to accept this, thanking Max for his hospitality, and they say farewell. However, later that night, Diablo suddenly returns, and he prepares to cook for them. Max wonders what he is doing, finding him even more terrifying than how he was 10 years ago. Diablo says he thought about it and thinks it would be too tragic to let someone of his caliber rot away, and he thinks he should study up on what humans have been doing over the last 10 years, so he decides to stay over while he does his research. Max doesn't want to babysit him, but Diablo claims he's the one who will be doing the babysitting. Diablo cooks hot pot for them, and Max admits it might not be the worst idea to have him around, but there seems to be a ghost that watches them. The next day, Max tells Diablo that he is going outside, and Diablo wants to go with him, but Max is against this because Diablo doesn't look human. As he leaves the apartment, Diablo speculates that Max is going to train for their rematch, so he thinks about shape-shifting to observe him. He thinks about the form he should take, and he remembers that Xenia gave him a school uniform, so he transforms into a female student. As Diablo walks around the city, he observes his surroundings, realizing that the world has changed after 10 years, but everyone is staring at him because of his revealing outfit. He sees Max walking around, so he starts stalking him, watching him as he drinks in the middle of the day. Max sits on a bench, as Diablo wonders if that's how he's going to spend the rest of the day. There are some kids that approach him, calling him a hero, and they play soccer together. After the game, he tells the kids about his glory days, as Diablo realizes that he fits in with the kids. The mother of one of the kids calls her son home, and the other boy says he also has to go, revealing that his mother doesn't want him to play with Max, and the last kid gives him food before leaving. After eating the food, he falls asleep on the bench, as Diablo wonders why he didn't go home. A group of thugs approach him, telling him not to sleep on the bench. One of them grabs onto him, not knowing who he is, and he hits him, challenging him to fight back. At that moment, Diablo remembers that Max attacked a civilian in the past, so he is afraid that Max will retaliate. However, he just tells the thugs that they are not worth his time, and they start beating him up. Diablo becomes upset, so he uses magic to make them fall asleep. They walk home together as Diablo apologizes to Max for not helping him sooner. But Max reminds him that he is no longer a hero, so that's the kind of life he has now. He claims that he was really freaking out when the thugs were beating him up, but Diablo knows this isn't true, saying it was right for him not to retaliate because he's the bigger person. The next day, as they are about to enjoy their meal, the doorbell rings, so Diablo opens the door. He sees Xenia outside, happy that Diablo is doing fine. But he asks her what she's doing there because she is supposed to be waiting for him at the castle. Xenia tells him she was worried about him, but she suddenly collapses. She starts gobbling up their food, leaving nothing for them to eat, and she compliments Diablo's cooking skills. Xenia asks for a toothpick and Max doesn't like her behavior, but Diablo asks him to excuse her poor manners, saying she is his secretary. Max thinks she isn't qualified to be his secretary, but Xenia calls him rude, revealing how she walked for 3 days just to reach Diablo. Xenia says her journey was difficult and the humans were gazing at her as she passed by, thinking it's because she's a demon, but Max tells her that it's because of her outfit. She implores Diablo to return to the castle, telling him he will lose brain cells by spending time with Max. Diablo claims that he's just there to experience human society, but Xenia knows this isn't true, knowing he's obsessed with Max. She thought Diablo would return to the castle after seeing Max's situation, but she never imagined that he would stay with him. Max tells Xenia she can take Diablo away, but Diablo becomes upset, telling Max that he can't function without him. Xenia wants to fight Max, saying she will sever his ties with Diablo, and Max is surprised that she is fighting with brass knuckles because she looks like a type that would use magic, but Diablo reveals she has no magic power. Diablo tells Xenia to stop, saying she doesn't stand a chance, but she quickly charges in as Max dodges her attack, grabbing onto her as he threatens her with a spoon. Diablo claims that she would have died if Max didn't go easy on her, telling her to apologize. So she obeys her master, saying she can now see why Diablo speaks so highly of his strength. Diablo notices that Xenia is covered in sweat, so he asks her to take a bath. While she takes a shower, Max notes that she packs a crazy punch, saying it must have been tough on Diablo to have her as a secretary. But Diablo states that despite her rough behavior, she's an expert at gathering intel. She finishes taking a shower, and Diablo tells her to make herself at home. Max tells him he's starving, so Diablo says he will go buy dinner for him. Before he leaves, he reminds Xenia that she's a guest in the apartment, asking her to be nice to Max. Diablo leaves the room as Xenia drinks beer, saying she knows that he's a playboy. She tells him not to corrupt Diablo with his unsavory ways, as she claims that he only got lucky during their fight, saying she would have beaten him if Diablo wasn't there. But he doesn't appear to be paying attention, so Xenia pulls him closer, asking him about his lousy attitude as she calls him a shitty hero. Max notices that she's drinking beer, telling her she's had enough as he tries to take it, but he ends up falling on her chest. He immediately apologizes, but Xenia becomes upset and she starts attacking him. Max realizes that she is faster now, thinking his life is in danger, so he starts running away as Xenia chases after him. They reach an open area and Max decides to fight her without holding back, but the police tell Xenia that they want to talk to her because she shouldn't be running around the town naked. She becomes embarrassed and she starts crying, asking them to forgive her. Max states that Xenia is his acquaintance, saying he gave her too much to drink as he claims responsibility for what happened. As they ride the police car, Xenia apologizes for her actions and the cop recognizes Max as the great hero, thanking him for saving the world. But Max thinks it's unfortunate that they had to meet like that. Back in the apartment, Diablo apologizes for Xenia's behavior, but Max has already moved on from the incident, asking him if Xenia has returned home. At that moment, Xenia enters the apartment, revealing she's now their neighbor because she now lives next door. Xenia reveals that she still doesn't trust Max, so she wants to keep a close eye on Diablo. At the Magic Bureau, we see Max's old companion Fred, as he watches a video of Max getting chased by Xenia, but he recognizes that Xenia is a demon. In a flashback, we see Max and Leo walking in the woods when they see a group of demons charging at them. They prepare for battle, but a barrier stops the demons and they realize there's a powerful barrier surrounding the area. In a chapel, we see Fred telling the people that talismans are keeping them safe. But new species of demons have appeared, so they created new talismans to protect them, offering it at a discounted price. The people scramble to buy the talismans, but the duo arise, laughing at the talismans. Fred goes to them, telling them the talismans work even against the most powerful demons, but Leo knows that he's lying. At that moment, a powerful demon breaks the barrier and a swarm of demons descend upon them. Fred and the other clerics try to fight, but there's just too many of them, so the people start running away. A civilian uses the talisman to defeat a small demon, but when he tries using it on a stronger demon, it does nothing. Leo saves him in the nick of time, telling him to leave as Fred becomes exhausted, but Max helps him out. Fred realizes that they are not ordinary travelers, and they fight the army of demons together. They defeat the demons, but lightning strikes, and it's about to hit Fred, but Leo protects him. The demon boss appears before them, and it charges at Max, exchanging blows with him. Fred attacks it with holy light as Max delivers a decisive blow, but the boss survives and it teleports away. They sit together as Fred reveals that he's a phony cleric since he's been ripping people off with his crappy talismans. But Max thinks he's skilled since he protected the town with his barrier, so they ask him to join the party. Back in the present, Xenia gives Max a book asking for his opinion. He opens the book, and he learns that it's about Leo's defection from the kingdom. Making him obsessed, Max immediately walks away as Diablo realizes that he must find it difficult to talk about his former friend's defection. While walking outside, a reporter approaches him, asking him about his video with Xenia. He claims that the woman running after him is his drunk friend, but the reporter keeps asking him questions about Xenia, so he starts walking away. The reporter wants to follow him, wanting to find where he lives so they can catch him with Xenia, but he suddenly disappears. We see his footprint on the ground, and we learn that he jumped away. He can't believe that someone recorded the incident, but he feels relieved because nobody knows that Xenia is a demon. He returns to his apartment, but we see Fred's root following him, calling him pathetic for living in such a dump. As Diablo tells him to get changed, the doorbell rings and they sense a powerful magic behind the door, so Max tells Diablo to hide, saying his presence will complicate things. Diablo hides in the closet. As Max opens the door, he is surprised to see Fred, asking him what he wants, but Fred reminds him that they're buddies, so he just wants to catch up. Fred enters the room, telling his companions to take a break, and Max tells Fred that he isn't prepared to entertain him as the chief secretary of the Magic Bureau, but Fred claims that he's just an ordinary person around his friends. He wonders why the place is so tidy, because he knows that Max is a slob. Max tells him to get to the point, asking him how he found his address, but Fred keeps looking around saying he wants to reminisce. He sees their picture from 10 years ago, and he reminds Max about the time they slipped through the demon's defenses where he used his skill to conceal their presence. He sits with Max, revealing that he's there to discuss the Gamma Republic, which is a new country formed by Leo when he defected from the kingdom 3 years ago. Fred reveals that the Republic is actually a terrorist organization which is currently occupying the kingdom's territory. It is composed of traitors and criminals, but its military is growing, so it's considered a threat to the kingdom. Max wonders if they're on the brink of war, and Fred tells him that they need to prepare themselves because they're bound to cross swords eventually. Max isn't interested in participating, but Fred begs him to fight for the kingdom, knowing he can help stop Leo. Fred adds that if he joins the Royal Army, they can bring a swift end to the dispute with the Gamma Republic, saying Leo might even surrender before a war breaks out. He doesn't want to see casualties on both sides, so he asks for Max's help. But Max reminds him that he's retired, claiming he's not as good as he used to be. Fred informs him that he is guaranteed a higher rank in the Royal Army, so it's the perfect chance to make a comeback. Knowing he's financially struggling at the moment, he becomes upset, telling Max that he doesn't belong in his tiny apartment. But Max tells him this is what his life amounted to, telling him to ask someone else. Fred thinks that Max doesn't want to fight his former friend, but he denies this, claiming he has no morals as he tells Fred to go home. Fred is about to leave, but he tells Max that he saw his video with Xenia, asking him where he met her. But Max refuses to answer his question. Fred says that they've been through a lot together, so he doesn't care if he's hanging out with demons, but he wonders what other people will think if they find out, thinking it will be the scandal of the century. He thinks that Max will be branded as a traitor, but Max claims that Xenia is not a demon. Fred tells him to relax, saying he's the only one who knows, but he asks him if he wants to return to his hero's life or become a wanted man. Max says he has no proof, but he tells Max not to underestimate him as he makes his way to the closet, saying he can sense an evil aura inside. He opens the closet, but he sees a ghost staring at him, so he immediately closes it. Fred asks him if he noticed anything strange while living in his apartment, but Max has no idea what he's talking about. Fred looks at him and he sees the ghost behind him, so he becomes scared, saying he has to leave as he tells Max to stand back. He quickly leaves the room as Max wonders what's gotten into him. Diablo leaves the closet and Max asks him if he did something to scare Fred. But he denies this, saying he was just hiding. He apologizes to Max for putting him in his position, and he admits that Diablo is giving him trouble, so he might have to leave the kingdom. Fred's companions wonder what happened to him since he appears to be in bad shape. They ask him if he was attacked by Max, but he denies this, telling them to take him home. But his companions remind him that he still needs to attend a meeting, so they carry him back to his office. Despite what happened, Fred is still determined to get Max on his side, thinking it's also in his best interest, but he refuses to go back to the apartment again. The next day, we see Xenia as she brings Diablo a particular book, which he claims will help him conquer the human realm. He shows the book to Max, and it turns out to be an album of hot demon girls in his area. Diablo thinks he must be lonely after he becomes washed up, and tells him to just have a look. Max thinks he couldn't date a demon since he went around slaughtering them 10 years ago, but Diablo says it's not a problem since demons have multiple lives, so he is sure they won't mind. Max has a look, but he finds Xenia on the first page. He instantly throws it away, but Diablo says she's a cash as long as he keeps her away from alcohol. They decide to move on, and Diablo tells him there's plenty to choose from, but the next one is just a pig. Max starts to lose it, but Diablo claims the girl is one of the most elite warriors in her army, saying she's actually quite sweet. But Max can't get over the fact she's a pig. They look at the next girl, and Max is glad she's a human, thinking she looks pretty hot, but she turns out to be half snake. Diablo thinks he's just too picky, but the book is just filled with all kinds of strange demons. Diablo asks him what type of girl he likes, and Max explains he wants a human-looking girl that's cute and knows how to cook. Diablo thinks about which one of his minions could fit the description, and he ends up transforming into his schoolgirl disguise, saying he could make the perfect wife since he can cook and clean. Max is stunned seeing this form, but there's a knock at the door and Diablo quickly changes back, opening the door for Xenia. Max thinks back to the past when Diablo offered to make him a demon, telling him they could rule the world together, but Max claims he would rather die. Diablo once again asks him to become a demon, saying things are different now, but Max is not convinced. So Diablo gives him a presentation on what it means to become a demon. He says it comes with a competitive salary, remembering how Fred said Max was broke so he won't have to worry about money if he joins. Max claims he still has some money saved up, but Diablo tells him to think about his future, mentioning he could earn 2,500,000 yen per month. He goes on to tell Max about the relaxed work schedule, saying he would only work 3 days a week and at most only 5 hours a day, along with getting paid vacation. Max can't believe how good it sounds. He wonders if it only applies to the people working in the castle, but Diablo mentions that everyone in their society follows these conditions. He also adds that by becoming a demon, he'll gain more power, as well as an immortal soul that will resurrect after a period of time if he's killed. Max can't believe they didn't lead with that, and Xenia hands him the contract. Max hesitates looking at it, and Diablo asks him to walk the path of immortality with him, but Max ends up turning him down. Diablo wonders why, and Max says he just wouldn't be himself if he agreed. Diablo thinks it's a shame wanting to have spent eternity with Max, but he claims it's now up to himself to get his life together. Max agrees, and he gets fired up as he decides to find a way to make money. He decides to become a YouTuber, saying there are some people that make a ton of money from it when all they do is play video games and scream into their camera, but Diablo has his doubts. Max tries his best, but he soon despairs as his first video only gets 14 views. Diablo decides to have a look, but Max gets embarrassed for him to watch it. As Diablo watches, Max goes by the name Mackie, but he's too nervous and he just mumbles. When he actually starts playing the game, Diablo quickly becomes bored, finding it terrible, but he tries to cheer Max up, telling him not to give up. Max decides not to let one setback get him down, and he decides to find another way. So he ends up trying to do a snack review, but it does just as bad, and the commenters call him a pig. He starts to think he isn't cut out to be a YouTuber, but Diablo suggests he should try one more time, telling him to give it his all and even offering to help him out. But this gives Max an idea. We see Diablo in his schoolgirl form, trying out streaming, as Max coaches him from behind the camera. In just a few minutes, he already has over 2,000 viewers, and the chat thinks he's cute. They like his outfit, so he shows it off, saying it's his uniform. Max tells him to do a snack review, so Diablo decides to eat a popsicle. After a few more minutes, he now has over 10,000 viewers. He gets some of his popsicle on his uniform, so he starts to take it off. Max can't believe what he's watching and the chat is going wild, but they end up getting banned from the platform, so they think they'll need to find something else. Max and Diablo head to a mall, where they meet a girl at the supermarket, who recognizes Max as the great hero, thinking Diablo is his girlfriend. She shakes his hand, but she tightens her grip and removes her mask. Max recognizes her and she tells him that she's about to go on a break, wanting to talk to him outside. Diablo finds her suspicious, asking Max who she is, and Max reveals she is one of Leo's companions, Ani-Kun. He knows that she is from the Gamma Republic, and she takes him outside, leaving Diablo behind. They head to the locker room where Ani-Kun gets changed, and Max asks her what she's doing there, so Ani-Kun reveals that she's spying on the enemy. Meanwhile, Diablo is still in the mall, thinking about keeping an eye on Max. He is approached by a man named Will, who asks him if he is with Max. Diablo confirms this, so Will tells Diablo to go with him, saying he will take him to Max. Ani-Kun sits with Max, and we learn that it's been 5 years since they last met. He asks her how Leo is doing, so Ani-Kun reveals that Leo is always thinking about him. As they walk together, Diablo asks Will if he is from the Gamma Republic. He confirms this, so Diablo calls him a terrorist, making Will upset as he claims that they are not terrorists because they are fighting for what's right. Diablo is annoyed by Will's behavior, but he pretends to be helpless, begging Will not to hurt him. Will reveals that he is there to recruit Max, but he thinks Max won't be able to help them, seeing him as a washed-up hero. So Diablo becomes upset, telling Will that he has no match for Max. We return to Max as he tells Ani-Kun that he doesn't want to get involved in their dispute, wondering if she's trying to drag him into the mess. Ani-Kun gives him an envelope, which contains a ticket to the Gamma Republic, saying he can use it to go there. She invites him to hang out with them, knowing Leo will be happy to see him. Max says he'll think about it, when suddenly, they see Will holding on to Diablo as he criticizes Ani-Kun's methods, saying it won't be enough to bring Max to their side. Diablo pretends to be a damsel in distress, and Ani-Kun tells Will to stop, but he refuses, thinking they need to use a hostage to coerce Max into going with them. He claims that the kingdom has been spreading lies about the Gamma Republic, and he invites Max to join the Republic with his girlfriend. But Max says he has no girlfriend, so he doesn't care what happens to Diablo. Will disparages him, thinking he doesn't have the guts to save his girlfriend, and Max agrees with him, saying he isn't even worth their time. Will threatens them, but Max doesn't seem to care, so he becomes upset, pulling Diablo's hair, but Max instantly dashes forward, breaking his arm and throwing him into the river. Ani-Kun saves him, and she apologizes for his behavior, saying he didn't know about Max's reputation. Will also apologizes, knowing he was wrong about Max, and they decide to return to the Gamma Republic, bidding Max farewell. Diablo wonders if Max is going to join them, but he doesn't want to get involved because he doesn't want Fred to become his enemy. Back in his apartment, Max takes pictures of the tickets, planning to make money by selling them online. Diablo thinks he should go to the Gamma Republic, but Max thinks it's too risky for him to go because he may not be able to return. Diablo opens the closet and she opens a portal inside, saying they can use it to return to the apartment in case something bad happens. He summons Xenia, telling her that they will be gone for 2 days, so he asks a favor from her. Max doesn't want to go to the Gamma Republic, but Diablo uses a spell to hypnotize him. And the next thing he knows, he's already on airship. Diablo tells him that he can no longer escape, calling him sloppy, because he could have repelled that spell 10 years ago. Diablo thinks they should know about the situation in the Gamma Republic, and they arrive at their destination. Max reveals that Leo's men will give them a hard time if they see him, so Diablo gives him a disguise. They enter the Gamma Republic, where they check out a hot spring. Diablo thinks the place is great, but Max thinks it's a ticking time bomb, saying it will run into problems in the future. He wonders why Diablo is sticking his nose into the dispute, and Diablo claims that he just wants to see humans destroy each other so that his minions can invade the world with ease. At that moment, they hear people talking about Leo, so they join the crowd and they see Leo in the hot spring. They have no idea what he's doing there, so an old lady explains that he's cooling down the water by stirring it, because it's still too hot for people to bathe in, but they see Leo enjoying the hot water as Max notes that he hasn't changed at all. In a flashback, we see Max and Leo fighting in the Colosseum. They fiercely exchange blows, creating a whirlwind around them as they fight with everything they have. Max manages to disarm Leo, allowing him to secure the victory. But he helps Leo back up and they celebrate together. Back in the present, Max and Diablo are walking around the city when they hear an announcement from Inigo saying the area around the border is now a restricted zone. The people speculate that there is a fight going on, so Max suggests leaving, but an old lady tells them that this happens all the time, saying everyone is used to it now. Diablo suggests going to the border so that they can witness the military capabilities of both sides. Max opposes the idea, but Diablo reveals that he is holding onto the return tickets, so Max can't return without him. Diablo flies away with Max, but before they could reach the border, he loses strength, causing them to crash. Despite this, they still reach the border, where they witness the fight between the Republic and the Kingdom. The Kingdom's leader, Captain Gelmuth, orders the artillery to fire, but a powerful barrier repels it. The Republic fires back, covering the artilleries with gas, which puts the Kingdom's soldiers to sleep. Max knows that they used a weapon that shoots magic, and both sides fire at each other, but neither of them gain an advantage. Max wonders why the Kingdom can't break through the wall, as Captain Gelmuth talks to a mage named Baka, who thinks that the Republic has attached a magical device to protect the wall. Baka knows that they won't make progress with their artilleries, so he comes up with a plan. The soldiers of the Kingdom fall back, and Inigo's group thinks that it's over. So they start talking about what to do next, when suddenly, a powerful beam penetrates the wall, injuring Inigo. Her companion tries to treat her, but the enemy attacks again, messing up his hair. We learn that Baka is sniping them, concentrating his powers to penetrate the defensive barrier. But Leo suddenly appears. He runs to the wall, jumping over it, and he prepares to face the enemy alone. The enemy is prepared to shoot him, but he spins his spear around, creating a powerful whirlwind which he launches toward the enemy, completely wiping them out. Leo approaches Gelmuth, and we learn that he used to serve in the royal army. Gelmuth tells Leo that the Kingdom will not stop, and the peaceful negotiations that Leo desires will never happen. Baka suddenly fires at him, landing a direct hit, and he says that Fred is suffering because of him. But Baka realizes his blast didn't do any damage. Leo tells Baka that he would like to talk to Fred as he lands a powerful blow which knocks Baka out. Gelmuth withdraws his men as Leo's friends thank him for saving them. Leo explains that he only went there because he felt a strong demonic presence, but he's starting to think that he's just imagining things. Diablo is impressed after seeing Leo's powers, saying he now understands why the Gamma Republic is able to defend against the Kingdom, but Max thinks that the Republic is only strong because of Leo. Diablo wonders if Max would be able to defeat Leo, but Max thinks that he wouldn't be a match for Leo in his current state. Diablo thinks that they have seen enough, so he proceeds to cast a teleportation spell, but Leo suddenly senses their presence, so he throws his spear at them as Max runs away with Diablo, telling him to open the portal. Leo chases after them, thinking they work for the Demon Lord, as Max realizes that he can't outrun him, so Max stasis him, ready to take him on. Leo can't recognize him because of his disguise, thinking he must be a spy from the Kingdom. Leo says he feels a demonic power coming from Diablo, so he wonders what Max is plotting. He tells Max to hand over Diablo, saying he will let Max go if he complies, and Diablo uses telepathy to tell him to do it, wanting him to escape. But Max clings to Diablo, saying he won't give him up, as he tells Diablo that he will buy time for the teleportation spell. Leo charges with his spear, but Max counters him, and they start to fight while Diablo starts to cast his spell. Leo ends up destroying Max's disguise, revealing his face, but Leo still can't recognize him, wondering who he is. Diablo finishes casting the spell, calling Max by his name, and Leo finally realizes who he's fighting. He asks Max what he's doing with the demon, but Max refuses to answer the question as he is teleported away. They return to the apartment where Diablo thanks Max for protecting him, but Max tells him to forget about it, and they agree that they had a pretty fun vacation. Diablo summons Xenia, but she doesn't respond, so Diablo feels like something is wrong. We see Xenia making her way to the Bureau of Magic, and we learn that Diablo ordered her to investigate it while he was away. The Bureau of Magic produces magic-based energy for the Kingdom, making it an important government institution. Xenia plans to infiltrate it, so she goes around the building and she uses a grappling hook to help her scale the wall, but everyone can see her, wondering what she's doing. She's stopped by a locked door, so she uses her lock-picking skills, but she ends up breaking the lock, and as she enters, a guard stares at her, asking her who she is. She knocks him out as she remembers that Diablo told her to value human life because humans only live once. She sneaks through the air vents, and she eventually finds the server room, but there is a man in the room. She quickly takes him down as she tries to hack the system. But at that moment, Fred enters the room, saying he was able to sense her presence. Xenia uses a smoke bomb covering the area in smoke as she tries to escape, but she ends up getting caught. Fred restrains her as he interrogates her, and he learns that she is working for Diablo. He wonders what they are doing with Max. But at that moment, his assistant Rim enters, telling him that Minister Grims wants to see him, so he leaves the room. Ordering Rim to watch Xenia, Rim takes care of Xenia as she thinks about escaping, knowing she'll be in trouble when Fred returns. Fred sits with Grims as they start talking about Leo. Fred thinks that Leo defected after accepting bribes, but Grims tells him that someone from the kingdom must have framed Leo because he knows that Leo is a man of integrity. Grims reveals that he wants to have a peace treaty with the Gamma Republic because many of their citizens sympathize with Leo, so he thinks he will be able to garner support if they go the peaceful route. He suggests putting a hold on all military operations at the border so that they can establish a strategic alliance with the Republic. Grims thinks it will be possible with Fred's help because he is Leo's friend, and Fred agrees to help him, saying he will do everything in his power. At the interrogation room, Xenia covers her body with oil, planning to use it to help her escape, but she still can't remove her handcuffs. Rim threatens to use magic if she makes any sudden moves, but Xenia uses her brute force to shatter the handcuffs. However, her legs are still restrained. Rim activates her magic as Xenia breaks her restraints. Rim is now surrounded in flames, and she uses it to trap Xenia, causing her to suffocate, and she is about to pass out. But at that moment, they are caught in an explosion. Grims appears to be behind it as he tells his driver not to stop because he doesn't want to get involved in the incident. He's planning to pin the blame on the terrorists, and he wonders what Fred will do next. Xenia is still conscious, and she sees Rim lying on the ground. She is about to escape, but she remembers how Rim looked after her. So Xenia patches her up and carries her out of the building. Back in the apartment, Max and Diablo learn about the explosion. Diablo tells Max that he ordered Xenia to investigate the Bureau of Magic, so Max thinks that she could be behind the explosion. But at that moment, Xenia returns to the apartment and she immediately passes out. After some time, Rim regains consciousness, and Diablo tells her that she was injured pretty badly as she recalls that she was caught in an explosion, but she wonders why she didn't end up in the hospital. Rim wants to return to work, but Diablo tells her to lie down, exuding his demonic aura as he tells Rim that she has potential. He shows Rim an employment contract, tempting her to become a demon by mentioning its benefits. But Max tells him to cut it out. Max apologizes for the mess they cause, and Rim learns that Xenia is working for Diablo. She knows that they are demons, so she asks Max to explain himself. Diablo speaks up for him, claiming that they were stray demons who were struggling to survive after the Demon Lord died. But Max took pity on them, so he took them in. He claims that they were moved by Max's generosity, so they decided to help humans. Rim actually believes his story, and she asks if they were behind the bombing at the Bureau. But Xenia denies this. At that moment, Rim receives a call from Fred, and she informs him that she was caught in the explosion, so she is undergoing treatment. Fred knows that she is in the hospital, so Rim reveals her location and Fred orders her to give the phone to Max. Max admits that he is hanging out with demons, but he tells Fred that he had nothing to do with the explosion. Fred doesn't seem to believe him, so Max suggests talking in person. Fred plans to go to the apartment, but he suddenly hears a strange voice, and he remembers that there is a ghost in the apartment, so he freaks out, telling Max that they should meet elsewhere. After the call, Fred receives a call from an unknown number, and he declines it, but he sees the ghost behind him saying he wants to talk. The rescuers arrive at the scene, and they see Fred having a seizure, thinking he must have been caught in the explosion, so they put him on the stretcher. Meanwhile, we see the 9 cabinet ministers in meeting. They discuss the situation as the first minister, Franca, reminds the others that they expelled Leo from the kingdom, asking them if they are happy because they now have a reason to go to war. But the other ministers are convinced that this is the work of the Gamma Republic, so they discuss what they should do next. The minister named George believes that they will be able to defeat the Gamma Republic, but he is certain that there are going to be casualties. They need someone who can defeat Leo, so the minister Reinhardt asks Grims if he can convince Fred to fight for them. Max and Diablo enter a restaurant where they have dinner with Fred, who wonders how a powerful demon like Diablo was able to survive. Max is about to tell him that they are behind the explosion, but Fred already knows this, thinking Xenia wouldn't have stayed in the building if she was the one that did it. Max thanks him for being so understanding, and he starts walking away, but Fred stops him, telling him that the kingdom is about to have a war with the Gamma Republic, seeing the bombing as a terrorist attack. Max doesn't seem to believe that the Republic is behind the attack, but Fred threatens to implicate him and the demons unless he agrees to fight for the kingdom. But Max doesn't seem to care, saying he can just join the Republic if that happens. Fred sees this as proof that Max wants to aid the terrorists, but Max reminds Fred that he defeated the Demon Lord, so he deserves to be treated with more respect. Fred tells him that he's no longer a hero, so Max threatens to join the Republic, and they start having a heated argument. Fred is about to get physical, but Diablo tells him to stop. Fred senses the power coming out of Diablo, so he lets Max go as he inquires about Diablo's identity. But Max doesn't answer the question, and he proceeds to leave, telling Fred to pay the bill. At the Gamma Republic, they learn that they are being blamed for the bombing, and Inigo thinks that the kingdom is trying to justify a war with them. Everyone is upset about this, and Leo says that they can't let this go unpunished, so they must prepare for war. Fred meets up with Grims, who tells him that the Republic is facing backlash because of the bombing incident. Grims thinks that there's no way to avoid war with the Republic, and he mentions Leo, who is a huge threat to them. He tells Fred that he is one of the 3 people capable of taking Leo down, thinking Max is a lost cause, and their other companion, Yuria, is already retired, so Fred agrees to handle Leo. At the apartment, Max and Diablo watch the news, and they learn that the kingdom is going to attack the Republic. The reporters interview the civilians, and they all wonder where Max is, knowing he has the power to stop the conflict. While walking around the city, they stumble upon a girl, who Max used to play with. She wants to play with him, so he starts playing with the girl. After some time, the girl gives Diablo her racket, telling him to play with Max. Max tells her not to use her powers, so they go easy on each other. But as the game drags on, Diablo telepathically communicates with Max, reminding him that his friends are about to go to war. Max thinks it's none of his business, but Diablo tells him that his friends could die, asking him if he's just going to let that happen. The game becomes more intense as Max insists that he will just leave his friends alone. Diablo thinks he wouldn't have said something like that in the past, as he unleashes his power swinging with all of his might. The ball approaches Max with tremendous force, but Max returns it, saying people change after 10 years. The girl watches as the game drags on, and after some time, she applauds Max, saying he has gained her respect. She gives him a piece of candy, and she asks Diablo to teach her how to play. As Diablo trains her, Max wonders what the girl wants him to do. We see the kingdom's army assembled at the border as Fred tells Jelmuff to keep everyone in check. Jelmuff becomes upset because Fred wants to turn his soldiers into spectators, but Fred tells him that it is the best way to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. Jelmuff reminds Fred that he is the commanding officer, so Fred should listen to his orders, but Fred attacks him, telling him to just watch. He thinks that he will lose his position because of his actions, but he doesn't care because he just wants to end things with Leo. He approaches the wall with his subordinates, and Baka tells him that it's still protected by a barrier hut. There is nobody inside. Fred summons his staff, and he uses it to strike the ground, creating a massive pillar of light, which obliterates a huge portion of the wall. A crater is left on the ground, and he orders everyone not to cross it as he flies into the enemy territory. The news reporters notice flashes of light from a distance as Grims watches the news, cheering for Fred as he fights. But he doesn't care if Fred loses because everything is going according to plan, so he knows that the Republic is doomed. At that moment, his assistant tells him that she has terrible news, and she shows him that Fred is on a live stream which is telling everyone that the kingdom is invading the Republic. He wonders how the media is getting the footage as we see a drone fly in the air. Fred notices it, but he ignores it, and he continues to attack his enemies. Everyone is watching the live stream, and Grims is worried that he won't be able to come up with excuses because of it, so he orders his assistant to ban the account, but every time they remove the video, it immediately gets re-uploaded. The other ministers blame Grims for the mess, and they are worried that Fred is going to spill some of their secrets, so Reinhardt calls him, asking if he's behind the broadcast, but Grims denies this, saying he only convinced Fred to join the battle. We see the people behind the broadcast as one of them reveals that she has prepared thousands of accounts just for this moment. The man in charge of the drone knows that Fred has seen the camera, but he wonders why Fred isn't destroying it. Fred encounters Leo, who reveals that he told his men not to interfere, so he apologizes for their actions. He asks Fred about Max, as he reveals that they fought, saying Max hasn't lost his touch. They decide to leave the drone alone, as Leo swings his sword with tremendous force, clearing the trees around the area. Fred casts a spell, which causes an earthquake as the area around them extends to the sky. Everyone watches in disbelief as a stage is set for their battle. In a flashback, we see Max fighting some skeletons with his party. More skeletons charge at them, but a massive explosion wipes them out as Yuria appears before them. Yuria calls them hopeless, telling them to go home because she plans to defeat the Demon Lord on her own. As they continue with their journey, Max and his party keep encountering Yuria, who helps them slay monsters. One evening, the party sets up camp and Max invites Yuria to join them, but she ignores him, telling them to go home because the demons are getting stronger. Yuria says that she doesn't need friends, and she dashes away as Leo wonders why she doesn't like them. She later encounters a powerful demon who asks her if she wants to join him, but Yuria declines the offer, claiming she's the only one who can slay the Demon Lord. The demon summons a massive pile of skeletons, which launches an attack, blowing her away as the skeletons slowly make their way to her. But at that moment, Max and his friends appear, and Max launches a powerful attack, destroying the skeletons, causing the demon to retreat. Yuria starts walking away, but Fred heals her as Leo asks her if she's okay. She wonders why they saved her, so Fred tells her that they share the same goal, so they can't let her talent go to waste. Max considers her as a friend, but she attacks Max with her spell as she agrees to join their party. Back in the present, Leo overpowers Fred, managing to land a hit, but Fred grabs him by the neck and attacks with a pillar of light, which brings Leo to his knees. Fred heals his wound as Leo remembers how his healing spell has saved him countless times in the past. Leo wonders why Fred didn't bring Max or Yuria with him, knowing he isn't good at close-range combat. Fred levitates as he surrounds himself with rings, and he calls the Republic trash as he attacks with beams of light. But Leo blocks them, revealing that he was banished to a wasteland where he met his friends who helped him establish the Republic. He claims that the kingdom is trying to steal everything from them as he launches an attack, but Fred counters with a beam of light which penetrates his chest. However, Leo endures it and continues his attack, injuring Fred. Fred calls the war pointless, thinking it will never end, but Leo disagrees, saying he will get the kingdom to recognize their independence. At the apartment, Diablo watches the fight as he comments that Leo and Fred are still as strong as they were 10 years ago, but he knows that they will eventually reach their limit. Max says he isn't interested in the fight, but Diablo tells him that they're his friends and they're about to kill each other, asking him if he's just going to let that happen. Max suddenly grabs onto Diablo as he reveals that he doesn't know whose side he should take because he thinks that he will have to kill one of his friends if he gets involved. He lets Diablo go and he falls silent as Diablo decides to leave him to his own devices. Diablo bids Max farewell and he flies away. Fred and Leo are about to continue their battle when Diablo suddenly arrives. He makes his way to the camera and he starts laughing, telling everyone that he's happy to see the humans fighting as he declares that the Demon Lord has returned, but nobody takes him seriously. Max watches through the laptop, wondering what Diablo is thinking as he attacks with a ball of dark energy, but Leo deflects it, and it ends up hitting him instead. However, Diablo refuses to give up, calling out to Max and asking him what he's waiting for. He implores Max to rise to the challenge, but Fred attacks him, causing him to fall. Max becomes enraged, saying he doesn't care what happens anymore. As the intense battle continues, Max rushes over, shaking the ground as he moves past the traffic. He jumps past the cars and he starts flying to the border with ridiculous speed. The fight reaches its climax with both Fred and Leo ready to die. But at that moment, Max dashes through the border, blowing everyone away. He jumps off his bike, ready to join the fight, but he ends up getting hit by his friends, causing them to stop fighting, and they wonder what he's doing there. In a flashback, we see Fred healing Leo, telling him that he's too reckless. Fred gives him an amulet, which has the power to counteract low-level magic, and he is grateful for this. But Fred tells him that he should use it because healing him is becoming a hassle. Yuria wonders why Fred isn't being honest, because she knows that he is worried about Leo. But she thinks that Leo is also terrible, because he doesn't realize that Fred actually cares for him. She watches them as they begin to argue, telling Max that he needs to interfere if anything happens between them, but he questions his capabilities, knowing that it's a huge responsibility. We return to the present and we see the people wondering who Max is, unable to recognize him as the great hero because he looks so old. The reporters interview George, who tells everyone to remain calm because the situation poses no danger to the citizens of the kingdom. But a reporter tells him that Max has joined the battle, and he is surprised to hear this. Fred asks Max why he showed up, and Leo thinks that he's there to help a kingdom in crisis. But this makes Fred upset, telling Leo that he isn't a big deal. They begin to argue, as they both claim that they are fighting for what's right. But Max tells them to shut up, saying they are getting on his nerves, so he's going to defeat both of them. Fred tells him to mind his own business, but he tells them to go to hell, and the situation becomes tense, so they decide to have a fight, where the last man standing wins. Fred uses his rings to attack Max, but he slices through them with tremendous force, covering the area in smoke. Leo charges at him, kicking him away and pressuring him with a series of attacks, commenting that Max has gotten slower compared to his prime. But Max activates his skill, launching a powerful slash, but he completely misses, and Leo lands a hit on him, bringing him to his knees. Leo is about to finish him off, but Fred blasts the area, revealing that he is disappointed, because Max didn't put up a good fight. Fred proceeds to launch a series of magical blasts, destroying the area around Max, and the relentless assault continues until he falls to the ground. Everyone starts to wonder if he's dead, and he realizes that he doesn't stand a chance, but a voice tells him not to give up. In a flashback, we see the heroes facing a powerful behemoth, and they are all struggling against it. Max tells them not to give up, but Fred wonders how they can defeat the monster because none of their attacks are working against it. He thinks that they are going to lose, but Yuria hits him, saying they should fight with everything they have. She unleashes her powers, and she stores it in a marble, which she forces down Max's throat, causing him to release a powerful energy as Yuria explains that he has entered a state called maximum drive, but it won't last long, so he needs to defeat the behemoth while he still has the chance. The behemoth attacks them, but Leo blocks the blast and Max charges at it, delivering a powerful blow. Back in the present, Max takes the candy which he got from the girl, but it's actually Yuria's marble. He quickly consumes it, causing a pillar of light to pierce the sky as his body starts overflowing with energy. An image of Yuria appears, revealing that she left a recorded message, and she tells him to defeat Leo and Fred before the effect wears off. She reveals that she can't join the fight because she's pregnant, but she believes that Max will be able to deal with them. Fred is about to attack, but Max blows him away. He summons multiple rings, firing countless projectiles at Max, but he dodges all of them and he slices through the rings with blinding speed. Fred uses all of his energy to launch a powerful beam of light, but Max cuts it in half. Fred realizes that he's in danger, so he erects a barrier, but Max easily destroys it, releasing a shockwave that blows him away. Max starts fighting with Leo, kicking him away and attacking with tremendous strength, causing the ground to shatter. The intense battle continues in midair and they start exchanging blows, destroying the stage in the process. Meanwhile, Will sees Diablo on the ground, so he helps Diablo up and he instantly asks about Max. As the fight drags on, Leo's blade is destroyed, so he starts fighting with his fists. Fred observes the battle from a distance, blaming Leo and Max for the situation they're in. He thinks that Max won't be able to accomplish anything even if he wins, and Yuria just made things worse by helping him, so Fred thinks that his friends are idiots. The fight reaches its climax, and Max delivers a decisive blow, causing Leo to collapse. But Max senses a powerful energy as Fred summons a massive ball of light, preparing to wipe them out. However, a dark energy beam destroys it as Diablo joins the fight. Fred realizes that Diablo really is the Demon Lord and Max hits him with a powerful swing, causing them to crash to the ground. Max is the last man standing, but everyone wonders if this is a good thing because nobody knows what he wants. He grabs onto Fred and Leo, and he takes them to where the camera can see them. He suddenly apologizes, knowing he and his friends have caused a mess, and he begs the viewers to tell him what he should do because he wants the conflict to end without violence. Max returns to the apartment where Diablo gives him a treat, calling him amazing because he saved his friends and ensured a future for the kingdom and the Republic. He says that he couldn't have done it alone, so he thanks Diablo for helping him out. At that moment, Xenia enters the apartment and she starts begging for forgiveness. She reveals that she was using her laptop to analyze the data from the Magic Bureau when the data was stolen by a virus, but Diablo isn't bothered, saying he has already forgotten about it. Xenia wonders why they're celebrating, so he shows her the news, and we learn that Max's actions shifted public opinion, changing the relationship between the Kingdom and the Republic. The Kingdom recognized Gamma as an autonomous territory, and Max became popular because of his heroic deeds. Leo dashes through the forest, clearing the trees with ridiculous speed as everyone builds a road that connects Gamma to the kingdom. Inigo gives the soldiers tea, reminding them that they are all part of the same kingdom. She reveals that Leo's group is happy about this because they never wanted to establish their own country, and they were only fighting to protect the land that they worked hard to develop. At the Magic Bureau, we learn Lem was the one who stole the data from Xenia. She gives it to Fred, but it just turns out to be the footage from when Max was making videos. But the video suddenly glitches as the ghost makes its way to him. This causes him to freak out as the ghost comes out of the monitor, grabbing onto his face. We see the ministers at a meeting talking about how Max's video changed the situation. Fred joins them in the room, and George reminds him that he used magic to attack Gelmuth, so he needs to be punished for this. Fred says that he is ready to face whatever punishment is fit for him, so Reinhardt tells him that he should resign from his position as chief secretary. Fred agrees to this, but Reinhardt still thinks there was something strange about the explosion at the Bureau, and Grimm suggests that it could be a magical experiment gone wrong. Reinhardt wonders what Fred has to say about this, thinking he must be behind the explosion, so Fred concludes that the ministers are going to turn him into a scapegoat, but he tells them to go ahead. The police enter the room, but they walk past Fred, and they make their way to Grimm's. They tell him that he is under arrest, which is a surprise to him as he claims he wasn't behind the explosion, but they tell him that he is wanted for embezzling public funds. We learn that there is an unknown source that has been sending out data, and it includes a financial report from the Magic Bureau, where the police learned that the Bureau's budget was being deposited to his account. So the other ministers disparage him, saying he doesn't deserve to be one of them, and the police start taking him away. He tells Fred that he didn't expect to be making such a bland exit, saying he is happy for Fred because his friend survived and he helped to avoid the war. But Grimm's tells him that he isn't a real man, calling him a loser who is tied down by his past. Minister Trigger wonders if Fred leaked the data that led to Grimm's arrest, and he says that he didn't do it. But he recalls that Xenia broke into the Bureau, so he realizes that she must be the one behind it. The ministers note that they now have an open slot, so they offer Fred the position, thinking he has done so much for the kingdom, and Fred considers the offer. Meanwhile, Max walks around the city, trying to keep a low profile, but he gets ambushed by the reporters, and they start pestering him with questions. He tells them that he's busy, quickly jumping away, but the reporters continue to pursue him. We see Yuria watching them from a bench, and we learn that the girl who gave Max the candy is actually her daughter. Max returns to his apartment, where he learns that Diablo was watching him escape from the reporters. As Xenia reveals that he was all over the news, he tells the demons that they should leave because they are his mortal enemies, and he is back to being a hero. But Diablo tells him that he's still not the hero he used to be, reminding him that he won't be able to eat delicious food if they leave. Max is conflicted, thinking of all their food. He has no choice but to agree to let them stay.